Hey everybody, welcome to Heart Matters with Father Norm and Gino. I'm Gino,
And I'm definitely Father Norm.
and we want to thank you again for tuning in with us and being with us again. We haven't recorded one of these, live here in a little while, but it's good to be back with you. And
I actually like connecting with you.
yeah, I think you've been in the gym or something.
Yeah, right. Give me a break. Yeah, right. If I'm in the gym next to somebody like you, I would move.
Oh, but so we've been in talks and having conversations about, all different kinds of things, and recently we were talking about this idea of death, and being in our roles as priest and pastor and these different types of situations year round. I always say being a priest or a pastor is one of the most dynamic jobs that you can have, because you're with people in the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and you get a exposure to some of these things that people experience periodically. Sometimes you can experience regularly, and there's certain psychological and emotional and theological things that you can wrestle with over the time and exposure to death. And for you, being in your role, and you've been in ministry for
52 years.
5 decades.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've encountered a good amount of death and consoling families around it. You personally, experiencing it, and I'm interested to maybe even ask you now, like, in your 52nd year of ministry, what that relationship looks like now. Would it look like the first, maybe funeral, first exposure that you had, and in between?
Yeah. Just briefly, because it got me to think back. When I was ordained in 1974, the bestseller book the year before was called On Death and Dying by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And I don't know if you're aware of that book, but at the time that was huge. And she talked about the stages of death and the stages of grief in the dying, and had a lot to say. We took a course in it. In fact, it was the last course that we took in the seminary, because I think the notion was, okay, you're going to go out into pastoral ministry. This is an important area. You're going to be talking to a lot of people who are grieving or themselves dying, and it's important to be aware of how to respond. So we did that. And for me, just briefly, because I remember thinking it was very academic, and I appreciated that. But even when I was, because I would have been 27 when I took the course, I was thinking, well, this is good, but I know this isn't the same as when I go out with a couple and talk with them and engage. It's a good foundation. And sure enough, it happened, because I thought it'll happen more readily when I'm out there as a priest, and hopefully have some sense of how I walk with these people. So probably within a year, my first parish, I did a lot of youth ministry, and there was a kid, 17 years old, Jack. Jack was on a motorcycle. He hit into a car, and it was right near where our parish was. We ran out there, and actually he died, and at 17. And of a large family. He was the oldest, and I knew the family a little bit. So I remember even there, when I went there, it was like I was feeling somewhat inadequate. I'm glad I had my background. I knew I could speak personally, but a 17-year-old right here suddenly, and I remember just trying to stay open. And one of the biggest things then and now it would be even, from the start, and I think I thought about it then, maybe with a little trepidation, simply being present with people, not having some glib answer, like some people, well, this is awful what happened to Jack, but, Jesus has taken him to heaven or something. No, even there, no, don't go there. Just simply walk with people, listen to people, kind of respond in that way. One more thing, and it could be good to hear your comments, that I learned and yet had to apply. Jack's parents, wonderful people. I knew them both. In fact, I was over their house a number of times after the funeral, which was also important. It's not, funeral, it's done, it's over now, we can go on. No, there's so much more, and getting other people involved with them too. But the difference, the mother was someone who was very extroverted, very emotionally expressive, and the dad was somebody very introverted, very cerebral about everything, and very holding his emotions close to his vest. So even there, I remember conscious, okay, it's good to understand. Don't assume that you have the same response to different people for this event. And boy, that was a growing experience too.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think, well, let me ask a follow-up question. As you have these different experiences and consoling families and even experiencing it for yourself,
Sure.
You being close to the family and having those different interactions with the person that is deceased and things like that. And then also like being there caring for people as you navigate your own, loss
Sure.
throughout those years, people that you lost, your mother and,
Sure.
and I'm sure other family members and friends and things like that you've lost over the years. Like, was it separate in your mind, or did you look at them all together? Was there a certain kind of nervousness, or not maybe nervousness, but a certain thing that was different about when it was personal to when it was for other folks, or was it all kind of together?
Yeah. No, because a lot of people may remember, my mom raised me as a single parent. She's basically the family I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And she had been ill for a number of years with cancer. They didn't even expect her to live 5 years. It was breast cancer, but she lived to 12 years. And then had another form of cancer and went downhill. But I know for me, there again, what struck me, because I've been with a lot of other people. Obviously, this is my mom. This is my life. So I was always warm and caring and emotionally, but boy, it ran really deep. The other thing that I realized, that really in a prayer moment, God had to help me, because I wanted to be able to fix my mom. Everybody loves Father Norm. He walks with people. He cares with people. He makes you feel good, even some of the dying. Now, this was my mom, and she was going through a lot, and so trying to be attentive, be that presence and so forth. But I remember my mom at some point in that, I remember her saying to me, because she was very wise and very practical, she said, Norman, she said, you don't have to be my priest, you're my son. Mm. She said that to me, and whoa, it was the voice of God. I thought, that's right, and that's different. I mean, still that caring presence, or another way I put it is, hey, Lord, I know it. I don't have to be her savior, you are.
Yeah, that humanity piece is such a good and heavy thing. For me, I did do a few funerals in my short stint of ministry, in stark comparison to you in 52 years. I think I was officially a pastor in 2016, 2016. And even from that 10 years, 11 years, had quite a number of funerals that I was able to be fortunate enough to be able to be a part of, and to eulogize folks from the church. I pastored that church in Louisville. It was an all-white congregation, and A lot of the members there have been members for several decades, and people passing away, and it was interesting, all the dynamics there, but then also being their pastor in those moments of their transition and things like that. And so it was always honoring, or an honor to be able to be in those situations. Personally, I remember losing people throughout my life and it being really, really hard. And then when my grandfather passed away, I think it was in 2012, it was the first funeral, it was the first death that I had ever experienced that didn't feel completely like a loss. And I remember I was at work and I got a call from my brother, and my brother said, we call my granddad Gramps. He said Gramps passed. And I was like, what? He passed? And I was like, how? Like, he was fairly healthy. He did have a couple strokes, but he was still pretty, active in things. And I had literally just seen him a couple weeks right before that. And I remember going to the hospital and just being overcome with emotions and crying and getting to the room and then seeing his body on the table. And I remember I went to go, like, I was still crying and everything, and I grabbed his hand, and when I grabbed his hand, I stopped crying. And it was, his hand was cold, and I looked at him and he didn't look like himself, and it was like, oh wait, he's not there anymore. Like, this is just a shell. This is just, and that, like, practical realization. Like, I always had the theological understanding that is true, but the practical realization that my grandfather has transitioned out of this body helped me to, like, grasp the theological understanding of, like, this is not just loss. This is lost in the experience that I had him, but there's another aspect to this that maybe I'm not realizing in the moment. And though I'm sorry and sad that he's not here anymore, I know that he still exists, and our relationship and our dynamic just changes now. And so that particular encounter personally helped me to navigate relationally and pastorally when I was helping folks transition and being there in the last, minutes and days of their lives, to be able to pray correctly and to bring the right kind of comfort to them and I guess properly frame that in a way. But I think
I think of that experience of letting go. And if you're going to genuinely love, put your whole heart and soul into it, at some point you're going to grieve. And that, how to let go. And of course, in a faith perspective, it can certainly help. It doesn't make it all beautiful all at once, but letting go and saying, okay, I'm letting you go into an eternal embrace of love and life, and embrace that someday in our faith, Christian faith, that connect again. But the ability to let go, because death is not the final reality. And saying that quickly, just talking about my mom again, as I said, when she became ill, seriously the second time, two just brief episodes for me, that last year of her life took her to the doctor because this cancer came back. And she came out, and I was waiting in the waiting room, and she came out, and she was ashen, and you could see she was upset. And what I immediately did, just reaction, and probably a lot of people would do, is she had gotten over cancer years ago, so, oh, Mom, you got it over years ago, this is difficult, you're going to make it, this will be fine, don't worry about it. I was trying to be her cheerleader again. And there again, even in that experience, like the Lord spoke to me and went, hey, just go over, look at her, look at your mom. Just go over to her, give her a hug, which I did, and basically say, Mom, this was so hard to hear, you know. And I think that touched both of us, but because a lot of times people don't know what to say, and it'll be fine, you know, and being able just to do that and embrace, and then maybe one step going beyond. Then when my mom was in the nursing home, I had to put her the last few weeks. She stayed with me, but couldn't handle it anymore, and so in the nursing home, and then they called me because I was there every day. They called me around 3 or 4 in the morning and said, your mom, we don't think it'll just be a few more hours. So I went there, but there again, when I went there, and I knew she was slowly going downhill. It always seems sudden, no matter what.
Yeah.
But I went there in this big bed, and I just kind of unconsciously, not self-conscious, got in the bed. And she wasn't, you know, active, or they always say maybe listening in the ears, they can still possibly hear. So I got in the bed and I just held her in my arms, and I said to this, and I can still get teary-eyed, and I know it meant a lot. I said, Mom, you're a great mom. I was 50 years old at the time. I said, you're so good. You've raised me even to this time. I said, it's okay to let go. It's okay to let go, because I'll be okay. Because I knew that was because it's just the two of us. This is her son. I said, I'll be okay. And of course, I said to her, I'll be okay. But thank you for what you've done, and it's okay to let go.
That's so powerful, and it reminds me of my grandmother. Years ago, I was part of this Bible study, and my grandmother, you know, her health was up and down for my whole entire life. If you haven't heard in the previous episode, she was in a bad car accident in the 70s, and broke her back in 3 places, and was paraplegic, and defied the odds. She was able to walk again, but her health was up and down for the rest of her life. And I remember there was one instance, it was around probably 2010, 2011. She had this big health scare, and I remember I was getting emotional in this Bible study, and we're talking about things that we need to pray about, or things that, you know, prayer requests. And I bring up my grandmother, and Kyle Stone, who is the Stark County prosecutor now, was in that Bible study, and he said to me, he said, your grandmother will never go until she knows that you're okay. And fast forward to 2016, and we knew that she was transitioning, and it was one of the last days that she was at the hospital, and she looked me in my eyes, and my grandmother hated needles, and so all the medics and stuff are poking her and stuff, and she's not even reacting, which is totally unlike her. And she's just looking at me, and we're locked eyes, and I remember feeling like she didn't have to say anything, but I could tell what she was wondering was, did I leave him enough? And I remember looking back at her and saying, it's okay. Like, you did your job. You gave me what I needed. It's okay. I'll be okay. We'll be okay. We're going to miss you. But we'll be okay. And I really think that, like, she needed to hear that. It was hard to say. It was hard for me to let go. But it was, I think, even harder for her to let go. For her to even be, because she had suffered for so long. But there's this beauty in how she suffered. That one of the last times when she was at home and she had failed, and was having a hard time getting up, and I was driving down to pick her up and put her back, and I remember coming home one day or coming to her home one day, and she was just in tears and crying, and I was like, what's wrong? And she was like, I'm tired. I'm tired, and I don't understand why. Like, I'm a good person. I don't understand why this happened to me. Like, why? Like, why this stuff? And I was like, maybe it wasn't just for you. Maybe it was for me too, because I got to get a front row seat to your suffering, and how you handled how you suffered has created such an endurance in me that I wouldn't have otherwise. And sometimes that pain is necessary. And I say that to say, I think oftentimes when sad things happen or death happens or things like that, like, our natural inclination is to like try to make things better. But like, though it hurts, though it's painful, though it's sad, though there's grief involved, there's a gift there somewhere. And you don't get the gift without sitting in that pain and sitting in the reality of what is, even if that reality is unfavorable. It's that whole context of like lamenting, right? Like, it's not just grief.
Let me jump in.
Yeah.
You expressed deep emotion. How many years ago did your grandmother die?
2016. So that was
10 years.
10 years ago.
And that emotion, those tears in you. Tell me about that 10 years later. So, what's that all about?
I think, it's my grandmother, so it's just like, try to give me a crowd with camera.
That's okay.
No,
You can be vulnerable. You look like that. You may be vulnerable emotionally. Yeah.
Just like, from a person's standpoint, like, you read about love, you read about God, you learn about theological, exegetical hermeneutics, and all these things, but all of that practically I received through her hands. And so, a large part of it. And so, that grief, though it evolves, it doesn't go away. And so, I don't know. There's just this deep love and appreciation. I got to eulogize her, and at the end of it, I said, death can't rob us of what we had. Like, everybody knows that me and my grandmother's relationship was like this since I was born.
Obviously, yeah.
And death can't steal that away. And so that love still exists. And so it expresses itself in my tears, but it also expresses itself in how I show up for my kids, how I show up for my wife, how I show up for my family. And so I don't look at these tears as like me not getting over it. I'll never get over it. But sometimes that love expresses itself in tears. Sometimes that love expresses itself in these different ways. And so the tears that I see now, or that you see now, are just it's that love, but it's also just appreciation.
Oh, yeah.
It's also this deep desire to make her proud.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
No, weren't expecting this.
No, we weren't.
No, but it touches me. I mean, because you can say this academically, but we're experiencing it right here. We often say it's tough even for men to express vulnerability, more so. But maybe anybody nowadays. But just our talking like this, and you're sharing yourself. I mean, you've always been a very close friend that I love being with, but you're expressing that in that way. Just made me obviously feel even closer.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it, when I think about it, every human being is going to go through loss or death, or and sometimes we don't talk about it. Or sometimes I remember even with people, even with my mom, saying, "Oh, well," friends would say, "Oh, don't bring up Norm's mom; he'll get teary-eyed." And I remember saying, and even sharing with other people, no, when you've loved somebody deeply, I get it. We went on to hurt him, but on the other hand, and I've had many people say, and I've said, no, my mom lived, yes, will I get teary-eyed when you bring her up and we talk? Yeah, but I'm glad for that. And I don't want, it's like she died once, she doesn't have to die as though she never lived, and so being able to talk about that and share that and feel that vulnerability that hopefully in some way everybody has some connection with.
Yeah. And you never want to forget them, right? Or you obviously you won't, but you never want to forget that investment and that connection, and that, because I think we both, for you, your mother, for me, my grandmother, that connection and that deep level of connection, and neither one of them were perfect, and they had their flaws and their issues and things like that, but so much of that connection has shaped so much of our relationships and how we view relationships and how we view connection and what's healthy and what's unhealthy and all those things. And so I'll keep crying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't
without apology, absolutely.
I don't ever want to get over that.
That's important. And I mean, I think we're coming out of a Christian background, and probably mentioned this before, but with the death of Lazarus and of course the anger of Mary and Martha, you weren't here. Why weren't you here? You could have done something. And he responds, but then he gets teary-eyed, and the people say, oh, see how much he loved him. And of course, I may have mentioned this before, but the shortest passages of Scripture, Jesus wept.
Yeah.
So seeing that, even though he may have known or had some understanding he'd be raised up, but that it struck me. He weeps, and the other people say, see how much he loved him. Yeah. So Jesus wasn't above, I'm the Son of God, and I'm above all this stuff. No, he was immersed in our humanity, our loss, our vulnerability. That's engaging to me too. That's sometimes where the deepest experience of God is. And one quick thing I remember when I was going to the gravesite, taking my mom there, and a number of people were there, and I just hung around afterward. And I remember having a prayer there, and kind of to God, what lamentation, whatever it was, I said, nobody, and this is, I think, true, nobody will ever love me the way my mom loved me.
Yeah.
Because I was the center of her life, just the two of us. Nobody will love me like that. And treasuring that and feeling the loss. But I remember, if not in the moment, over that time, it was God not glibly saying, don't worry about it, she's with me. Wasn't that. It was God saying, okay, please know that love that you experienced from your mom, that the God that I am, that love was conveyed through her to you.
Yeah.
But my love for you, God's love, will be there as much or more for the rest of your life. Absolutely. And she'll be part of that love.
Yeah. During the eulogy of my grandmother, I replaced her name. Love is patient, love is kind.
Yeah.
And I because everybody had shared these stories of how she was these things, and so at the end of it, I said, I read that scripture, but then I replaced love with my grandmother's name, and it fit. And I said, the very love and the thing that you were able to experience through my grandmother was borrowed by God,
Oh, yeah.
and that she was just the vessel in which
Oh, yeah.
God
Yeah.
conveyed his love to you, and she didn't live a life, and God didn't intend for you to receive that love as just a moment in time to create a memory, because memories are very vain and selfish in nature, because they are past experiences that we try to resurrect for our own self gratification. But she lived a life that demanded a legacy, and the legacy implies that what you receive, you have a responsibility to carry and to give away in the same way that it was given to you. And so I think that that is the epitome of legacy. And when we think of a true legacy is not a legacy that we live for ourselves, but a legacy that we echo what has been given to us by God, so that his legacy carries on.
Well, thank you. I know we need to wrap up. Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, this evening, as we've said, we don't rehearse or plan ahead of time. We just stay open to the movement of the Spirit, the movement of love. And boy, experiencing that here. And for all of you, I hope, we're all deeply human, and we all probably have similar experiences. I probably shared before, a psychologist in the 1950s, Carl Rogers, said, that which is most deeply personal is most universal. So all of us, any of you, be touched by this in your own experience of love. Good to be here. Any final comment you want to make?
I would just say, if you are listening or watching and you are grieving, to know that there is no rush. Obviously you don't want to get swallowed in grief and to dwell in it forever, but there's no rush to get over your loss, and that what you feel is probably normal, and that if it's hanging around a little bit too long, please seek professional help, whether it be a psychologist or a priest or some type of support to be able to help you to get through if that's needed. There's no shame or no guilt that's associated with that, and don't feel that, and know that the grief that you feel is just love transformed into a new form currently. And so thank you for being with us again today.
Yes, thank you. And I thank God for bringing us together. He had some reason.
He hasn't got rid of me yet, and so we'll see you next time.
Yes, take care.